So first, just in general, don't go Transcendence. I shouldn't still have to say this, but like just a trap rune because the CDR sounds good, but as support, it takes you way too long to get to level 10. So the game's usually pretty much over before Transcendence actually like does anything. But like meanwhile, I feel like Absolute Focus maybe was OP and is normal now, or like is still overtuned. I don't know. The point is just like you should always be full HP or near full HP, and you scale pretty well with ability power for most enchanters. And I still think Sona's just the best. Like you just play Sona every game if you want to win, except if you're versus like a playmaker like Thresh or Alistar or something. Maybe you want to play Morgana instead because you just basically E and deny everything. But yeah, like that's hasn't really changed. I think and just play Sona, maybe Morgana if you want to climb. But I will say, I used to think Nami was terrible, and I've seen more people playing her now, and she doesn't seem as bad. I think because the early laning phase where she's stronger is more important now, maybe. Um, but so maybe she's like playable now. I still don't like her later in the game. And similarly, Soraka, as a sort of early game champion, might be decent now. Mainly, I wanted to talk about Lulu though. I don't know if Lulu is actually good right now. Maybe it depends on the ADC or something. Like Lulu Cog could be good. I don't know. It's a famous example, but I think she actually has a bit of depth to her that I want to go into. So part of the reason I haven't done any support content, apart from being busy, is I feel like most sort of low hanging fruit is taken already, and like there's nothing that I can say that's not like blatantly obvious or is actually useful in a lot of cases. I really hate guides that are just like, oh, you can put E on a minion and then Q from it. So I want to try and go into a bit more like sort of subtleties than that, if that makes sense. Because I do, like to put a few points in Q early to harass on Lulu. But I think there are actually interesting things about how like Pix moves around. So Pix lags behind you a bit. You can see when you move, Pix just lags a bit behind you, and this can be useful to harass with Pix and or with Q rather. And I mean, moving picks is probably something that you just get a feel for after playing Lulu a lot. But I wanted to try and explain it like through words here. So you can see again how picks like moves behind you a bit. So what's interesting is that okay, well from here I can cue the dummy, but if move back a little bit, um, Lulu can't actually. I mean, maybe if you put the cursor somewhere differently, I don't know, the camera might be weird or something. But like, yeah, from that red dot, beautiful editing. You can see you can't cue the dummy from there. I think. Again, maybe the cursor could be different, but if you are walking away from somebody, again, Pix is lagging behind you, which means Pix is actually closer to them. So you can see now walking away, Pix is actually closer and still in range, which, if you think about it, is actually like a big deal because you're basically getting free range on your poke ability that way. And so you can see now like Pix is actually still in range, even though I'm like farther behind, I think the red dot than I was earlier. I'm actually in range now because since I was walking away, um, Pix is actually closer, which means you actually have like a range advantage when you're walking away from enemies. And again, this seems sort of important because it doesn't take any extra like mana cost, right? Because you're not wasting your E for this. You're just like moving around. But you can see when I'm moving, it's even more pronounced. Pix is farther away from me, and the Glitterlands hitbox from Pix extends even farther from ahead of the Glitterlands hitbox from Lulu's own model. And then once you start standing still, it sort of Pix goes a bit closer to Lulu, but like it's still a bit farther. And so like while you're moving around, Pix might be slightly closer to the enemy than you. And so like this just makes running away from people with Pix a little easier. And like also just because Glitterland slows, it gives you some decent safety because if people are trying to chase you down, you can just queue and run away. And you can go aggressive too, though, especially when the enemy ADC goes up to CS. You can, press E on them or even E auto and then get an extra auto in. And so with the Q afterwards, it can be hard to hit if they're just like running around in circles. But if they're running away from you, remember because Pix is lagging a bit after the movement of the champion it's on, that'll put some like a tiny bit of distance between them and picks, but like they'll be in the direction they're running away from picks. So like if they're running away from you, you can just put your mouse away from you, and like wait a second for them to run away. And if you know they're going to run away, um, you can just cue in that direction, and the picks from on them will hit them with the glitter lance. Um, and you don't do insane damage, but you can do a lot of poke, and then you do have some decent burst, which means like you can actually get some kills like after poking people down just with like a surprising fast amount of burst. And so I usually put a few points in queue early and use it to poke because since people are running around, and your pix is running around as well. Um, it has like slightly more range than your E, so you can be a bit more aggressive with it. And again, if you put your E on someone and like they have to run away from you, you can just cue in the direction they're running. But if they don't run away from you, you can just put your mouse like onto them and cue them with your like normal cue from your own champion. And so like some lanes you can actually poke people down and like even burst them and kill them if you have a good ADC and matchup. And then also, if you have your shield on your ADC, you can try and queue enemies off of picks on your ADC. Um, Especially since usually when you're going to be shielding your ADC, it's because they're fighting. So it gives you usually an angle to kite or poke or whatever with picks. Now, something I think with Lulu ult is people tunnel vision on their ADC. Who, as Lulu, you definitely I think want to be focusing on supporting your ADC, probably more so than any other like champion. But I think Lulu ult in particular actually, um, I mean, obviously if it's like your ADC is getting assassinated or something, you want to use it to save them. But especially if it's like a front to back team fight, I think you actually don't want to use it on your ADC. And like this might sound a bit counterintuitive, but I think it's actually better to ult frontline most of the time. So first of all, I think the biggest thing is your frontline like wants to be on top of enemy champions and like pretty much always will be. So they get a lot out of the knockup. Also, I mean, it's just good to save anyone you can. Like you don't want to let anyone on your team die. Usually, they're all sort of important. But yeah, like you want to take advantage of the knockup because whoever you give HP, like they're just gonna have bonus HP. It's like a heal basically. It just gives them HP. Her ult is technically not a heal though, and also all her abilities scale with ability power. So I think compared to other enchanter supports, Lulu actually benefits more from AP than from healing and shielding amplification. But the problem is support items are just like so strong, and like Sensor is so good with her kit that you sort of get them anyways. But I also think tier 2 boots are pretty decent on Lulu because you need to keep up with your ADC who you sped up. So my sort of greedy Lulu build is just cooldown reduction and move speed and then just like as much ability power as you can get. And again, part of the reason I haven't done more support content is I don't want to just like repeat myself when I haven't found anything really new and interesting to say. So I'm gonna point out two sort of newish things for me that I think tips that I haven't given before about Sona, but sort of relatively small things. So the first is just uh, in lane. Don't be afraid to use your potions even when you have your W, because your W is a really pathetic heal. Like it doesn't heal you for very much. You really should be trying to use your W more like as a shield so that you can get the most out of it in trades, and like so it helps your ADC too. And your potions do a lot for you early game. So like if you're below like 70% HP, just use a potion. Don't try and uh, use your W to heal up because your mana is actually pretty important early game. Um, and the other thing is don't be afraid to just ult one person. If going for like a pick or something, uh, going for like a multi-person Sona ult, I mean, it's sort of highlight play. I don't know. Your ult's really your only form of hard CC, so like, don't be afraid to just use your ult. Especially late game, you're a really useful champion without it, anyways. But yeah, like if your team needs to pick an enemy champion, don't be afraid to just like ult one person. And then something cool is Sona, because she scales really well late game. Like that's not why you can't play her in a solo lane. Like she would do really well with the solo experience in gold. But the problem is she's like no wave clear, and so she just gets run over, and then the enemy just roams. If you uh, try and play her in a solo lane, like you just get pushed in and basically leave your entire team to like 4v5. And then also like her abilities are sort of more geared to 2v2. Her Q hits two people, her W heals someone else. So um, something cool is playing her bot lane with like a Taric support or some other Relic Shield support. And the idea there is you go the Spell Thieves, like Frostmancy or whatever, so that you don't have to farm. And you just get your free gold income that way. And so it's a pretty cool sort of cheese. You actually scale pretty well, even though you don't have to like focus on farming. You can just try and poke with the Sona and have the Relic Shield like Taric or whatever farm. So I haven't actually tried this, but it seems to work pretty well. This doesn't really lead to anything, but I really have been feeling like Mana Flow Band is kind of useless on Janna recently because you get so much mana regen from the Forbidden Idol items anyways, and by the time you finish Mana Flow Band, you really don't need it because again, you just have plenty of Fairy Charm items. So like, I've been trying to go like Guardian and stuff just to like not take Mana Flow Band, but I'm not sure if it's actually worth it or not because I feel like you kind of do want to go sorcery, so I'm not sure what to do about that. So I think in Korea they don't like Janna very much because they want to play aggressively early. So when they do play Janna, they just sort of go full on her W, which it was changed right now. You can play really aggressively with W, um, and so they go like Mobies, Comet. And domination and like just full aggressive, like as aggressive as possible, just to do like as much in the early game as they can, um, which I think is interesting. It's very fun to play. I'm not sure if it's actually good or not. Um, like versus maybe it's better versus playmakers and versus other enchanters. I'm not sure, but it's really fun because you get to just run around really fast and play really aggressively in lane. And I mean, I don't think everything the Korean OPGG does is necessarily good with enchanter supports. Like going, for example, like health instead of armor in your runes is really bad. But it's a interesting, fun thing to try. So again, I don't know if it's actually good, but it's definitely a lot of fun and worth trying. So it's just, Comet, Celerity, uh, Taste of Blood, I think, Relentless Hunter, Mobies, and just press W on the enemy champion. And yeah, it's pretty fun.